Hello and welcome into the latest edition of ESPN FC. Kay Murray, Craig Burley and Stevie Nicol here in the studio. A little later on, Gab Marcotti will be joining us to look back on all the drama of the final day in the Serie A and some big teams missing out on Champions League football. But we will begin in La Liga with a reminder how things finished in the table. Barcelona champions, 8 points ahead of Real Madrid, who had a campaign to forget. Dressing room bust-ups, Xabi Alonso sacked, players speaking out against the coaches, and now, according to reports that continue to grow today, José Mourinho was set to be announced as the new manager, but that announcement has been delayed due to the upcoming elections at Real Madrid. However, we are going to discuss the possibility of José Mourinho coming to Real Madrid, just in case it is to happen. We do keep seeing those reports, so Steve McManaman is joining us now to talk a little bit more about it. Do you really think he's the coach to fix the problems here, Steve?
Well, I think his name has surprised most people, particularly with the shenanigans that went on between, José Mourinho and the things he said about Vinícius Jr. with the incident with Prestiani. So I think it's came out of nowhere, really. I mean, we know Florentino Perez has always admired José, but whether he's the man to fix it, that name has surprised me. I mean, as you rightly said, it's off the table for this moment in time while the elections go on. And if somebody beats Florentino Perez, maybe they've got another name in mind. But of course, Florentino Perez is huge favourite to win the election yet again. And it looks as if Jose will come in, but it has surprised me. He's 63 years of age. Of course, he was at Roma, then Fenerbahce, and recently at Benfica. To jump back into the hot seat at Real Madrid, it's wonderful for him, but it did surprise me. I must admit, it really did.
I've not spoken to you too much about this, Craig.
It's like Marcus Rashford getting that move to Barcelona, which he pretty much took in his stride, where everybody's thinking he's the luckiest guy alive. As Maka said, Mourinho of yesteryear, what you'd have been like, yeah, absolutely, but not of recent years. But clearly they're looking for, I'm going to say, somebody to calm the situation down. I'm not quite sure that he's going to do that, but clearly they're looking for a really experienced head. They had one in Ancelotti who was brilliant. They had a less experienced one in Xabi Alonso, who had obviously issues with certain players, as a lot of the managers have had. And now they're going this route. Now, as we are the rights holders of La Liga, I think it's going to be super fun for us watching. And I say the antics, but it could be the antics, or it could be the frustration. It could be, the headlines of working with Mbappé and Vinícius Jr. and one or two others, and trying to get them to do the things that Alonso and Ancelotti in the end were trying to get them to do, which was do the basics and work a little bit harder. So I think for us, obviously, it's going to be very intriguing because it's a big name coming back into a very delicate situation. But I think if you're a Real Madrid supporter and you're looking at Barcelona having the success again, and you're looking at the way they've played and the entertainment factor, and we've heard a lot of the whistles this year at the Bernabeu again, because not just because of results, but because of the manner in which they've played. And Maka, who's done many commentaries, has said this on more than one occasion. Real Madrid were very easy to play against. And a lot of the lower teams in Spain went to the Bernabeu and sometimes outplayed them. Not always beating them, but sometimes outplayed them. And I think, I'm surmising, Real Madrid fans, as well as not getting the success, were fed up with what they were watching. And the big question is, as we know Mourinho, how he operates, is that going to improve the sort of wow factor of the football? I think not. Will it improve the results, Stevie? I mean, it might improve results, but it's not going to improve the entertainment factor. So there's a balance here.
I can't... To be honest, football really isn't the thing that's in the forefront of my mind when I think about Real Madrid right now. This is going to be as big a test as he's ever had.
Personality-wise in that dressing room? Absolutely.
Right now, we believe there's a big split between Vinny's camp and Mbappe's camp. Now, in my experience, those things don't go away. And there's no question that when that happens in any dressing room, it involves everybody, because everybody's human, and you end up with your friends getting this and then the other guy's mates getting that, and it just takes everything away from the football. Now, he's either going to be able to sort it or he's going to make it worse. because of his personality, because he doesn't back down from anybody, and he doesn't take it from anybody. In his mind, he is the man, and if you don't listen, you're in trouble. But we've seen already that both Vinny and Mbappé seem to be untouchable. So it's a toss of a coin which way this goes. And honestly, my money's on it going wrong.
Do you know when you get one...
Not going well.
Do you know when you get one of those phone calls from your mates and you think they're putting something on because they're offering you something, and you tell them, you say something bad to them? It's almost like that for Mourinho, isn't it? In the sense that he probably can't believe that this opportunity, it seems, is going to arise, because he was heading towards managing probably at some point the Portuguese national team, and rightly so. I mean, he's in his 60s, and maybe, you know, just taking it a little bit easier and just
this is
floating off into the sunset. This is the complete opposite. This is diving straight into the bonfire head first.
He knows obviously what it takes to be Real Madrid coach, Macca, and he knows what it's like to manage some big personalities. He's a big personality himself, though. He had Cristiano Ronaldo in his last stint at Real Madrid, but now, how will his personality go with the likes of an Mbappé and a Vinny Jr.? Do you think it could work?
No, listening to the boys, I'm of the same ilk. They've got one team to beat. They've got one team to usurp, and that's Barcelona. They'll finish second regardless of who's manager. But it's whether he can get those people on side. You know, he had Ronaldo. He left Real Madrid in 2013. That was 13 years ago. And, you know, his last 4 or 5 years at Roma and particularly Fenerbahce and Benfica, they're big teams. You know, he was brought in for Fenerbahce to beat Galatasaray, which he didn't do. He was brought in for Benfica to go past Sporting in Porto again, which of course he hasn't done. The fact that he's got the Real Madrid job and he's got David Alaba leaving, of course, Dani Carvajal going, you know, big names in the dressing room. Something is going to have to change. You know, huge reinforcements are going to have to come in, because if he just goes in with the squad available now, I think Dani Ceballos is going to leave as well. If he goes in with that squad now, there's no way he's going to turn it round. But he has to produce, or the president is going to have to do something to sort out this situation of, can Kylian and Vinny Jr. play together in the same team and work as hard as possible for the side? Because we haven't seen it yet. And unless somebody intervenes and says something strange or sells one of them, you know, Vinny's contract is up next year. Unless something severe happens and one of them is to leave, then I think they'll have the same type of problems. And I'm worried about the antics as well, because as Craig rightly said, you know, Jose doesn't back down from everybody. You know, as a person, he's fantastic. You know, away from the football pitch, he's fantastic. But on the pitch, he gives it his all. And some of his antics in the past, the last time he was at Real Madrid with Tito Villanova for Barcelona, and what happened then, and of course at Roma in the final against Sevilla, sometimes you look and go, Real Madrid do not need those type of antics. And as I mentioned before, the Prestiani interview after the game with Vinny Jr., that didn't look great on Mourinho. So he's going to have to calm down as well. Or otherwise, it's going to make matters worse. So it's going to be, well, if he does get the job, it's going to be fantastic to sit and watch it all play out. But from now, with Vinny Jr. and Kylian and Jose going into the mix, it just seems as if it's going to be fireworks. And I'm with Craig and Stevie. I don't know whether it's going to get any better unless something monumental happens this summer with the squad itself, and whether somebody leaves or people come in. But it's going to be all much of the same to me next year.
Can those two be part of the same successful team,
well,
regardless of who the coach is?
Well, maybe after the World Cup, maybe they'll have to go on a fishing trip. I mean, I don't know. But, you know, Mbappé and... Send them out in a boat, Mbappé and Vinícius on a little fishing trip, see if they can bond. I don't know. There's big egos. I mean, if you're Florentino Perez, you have to... And once you get your manager, if it is Mourinho, you have to sit down with the two players in the camps, and you have to try and get them to bang heads and figure it out. And if you can't, one of them has to go. Now, just looking at the stats alone, the one that would have to go would be Vinícius Jr. His goals are 50% almost, or thereabouts, of Kylian Mbappé. But then you got the other side where there's usually they talk about Mbappé. You know, he doesn't work hard enough, doesn't do this, doesn't do that. Look at PSG. they're a better team rather than better individuals. We'll get some great individuals, so there's that argument. So I don't know which way they're going to go, but what you do know is you can't have two of your star players continually bickering and fighting for the same piece of real estate. It's just not going to work from a team perspective. So yeah, and listen, if Mourinho, if he goes back in there and somehow, gets on top of Barcelona, which is a big if, by the way, because Hansi Flick has been brilliant and they're so good to watch. But if he does, all of a sudden he's the peacock again, isn't he? Strutting around. So I'm sure that's what's in the back of his mind. I can go in there and I can make the difference. But I think most of us, having seen the last couple of years, know that that's going to be very, very difficult. Unless the summer brings a whole sea change of signings and star players, which I don't really see that happening, not all at once.
One of them's got to go.
Yep.
Vinny's won big at Real Madrid and Mbappé hasn't yet.
Well, I think the fact that Vinny's got 1 year left on his deal makes it a bit easier for him to be the one that has to go. And that is the only way I see this working. One of them has to go. Because they're not going to get on and off the field, and they're not getting on the field because they both want their own ball, and neither of them tracks back. Neither of them is, considering what the game, the majority of the best teams today are about closing the opposition down high, that high press, all of that stuff. Well, you can forget that with Vinny and Mbappé, and so straight away he's got one hand tied behind his back. So it's not working on the field, and particularly if it's not working on the field, you have to make a change. And for me, it has to be Vinny.
When you take a look at the players that they might bring in, or the type of player that they would need to bring in with this Real Madrid team, and we take a look at what they did fall short in this season, Maka, and it's another season without silverware for them, what are the positions that you think Real Madrid need to address?
Well, I think they need to bring someone in the centre of the park. I mean, they've had Rodrigo injured for most of the season, haven't they? Which hasn't helped. But saying that, he was on the periphery anyway. He was a major player in the last couple of years, and then suddenly when Kylian comes, he's gone because the three of them couldn't operate together, and then the two of them can't operate together. So they're going to need someone in the centre of the park. They're going to need someone in defence as well. I think a real leader, because Rudiger's getting to the end of his career. Raul Asensio's only young. Dean Howson's had a disappointing year, but will get better. They've still got three left backs, so that has to be addressed, because they brought in Fran Garcia to replace Ferland Mendy. Then they brought Alvaro Carreras in to replace Ferland Mendy and Fran Garcia, and they still went back to Ferland Mendy when he was fit to play against Manchester City, etc. So that's an area they have to address. They just have to clean up shop a little bit. They have to get rid of the ones that they're not going to rely on and invest heavily in a few of the others. But at this moment, they look lopsided on the pitch. Everybody wants to play onto the left-hand side. Kylian and Vinny Jr., when they play together, they hog the opposite sides of the pitch. So if you're Trent Alexander-Arnold, you haven't got anybody in front of you. If you're Fede Valverde, and he's played three different positions this year, which he hasn't been happy about, that doesn't help them either. So they're severely lopsided at times. So that has to be addressed. But as Stevie rightly said, in the end, it's all about how hard you work. Get behind the ball. You close people down. You work hard to defend when you haven't got the ball. And that's been lacking. And if you look at the personal stats, as in running stats, times on the pitch, how hard they run, how many sprints they have, their personal stats are quite damning. And that's something that has to be addressed. Doesn't matter how good or how bad you are. The minimum requirement is work rate and effort, and you run and you run and you run, and everything else should follow if you're in a team of the likes of Real Madrid. That's what's happened in the past with the Benzema's and the Ronaldos and the Gareth Bales, etc., etc. Big egos, it doesn't matter. They still work and they do the right things. Listen to the instructions of the manager. Get on well with the teammates, regardless of whether the personal friend's on or off the pitch. You get on well because you've got a job to do, and that job is to cross the white line, win a game, win a trophy. And when it doesn't happen, it's massive, massive problems in Real Madrid. We've known that forever. When you're successful, you get lauded, you get treated like a god, a king. Everybody is the king of Madrid. And when you don't win anything, it's a huge problem. And when your arch rivals are dominating like they are at the moment, then that triples. So that's why it's a huge summer with the presidential elections, and then what the new president, if it is a new president, who he's going to choose and who he's going to bring in, because he's going to have to gift something to the fans, and whether that's a new manager or a raft.
Yeah, I think I just lost Steve at the end there.
Yeah.
Are you still there, Macca?
Yeah, he stopped.
Yes, I am. So,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
It was good timing because we just lost him as he was
It
finishing.
was perfect timing, but I do have one question as we wrap this one up. You know what it's like to be in a galactic dressing room at Real Madrid, Macca. Would you have been happy to have this version of Mourinho come into your dressing room back then?
Well, I had Vicente Del Bosque for 4 years. He was a Carlo Ancelotti type person, really calm. But what I would say is that when he was unceremoniously sacked when we won the league, he was treated terribly. Then a manager came in and he was gone within 3 months. Then another manager came in and he was gone within 3 months. And then Jose Camacho came in and was gone in about 20 days. If the players don't like you, they will get rid of you. And that has always been the case for 25, 30 years. And it's no different now. So it all depends whether it's a fiery Mourinho who wants to be aggressive with everybody and wants to lay down the law, or whether it's just going to be this newer version of Jose Mourinho. As Craig said, this is an incredible job to have at 63 years of age when, the last few years it looks as if he's been winding down to, a national team job. So to go right back into the fire, it's how he approaches it, and that's going to be the box office TV. That's why I can't wait if it does happen. But you don't know whether it's going to be, an absolute disaster or, a rise to superstardom again.